You need to separate your performance in the previous game from your performance in the next game. Life rarely occurs the way you want it to sometimes. Chain is not where the line stops.
Xanxust, who are you and what have you spent your life doing?
I go by Xanxust Mahjong on YouTube, and I've been playing Riichi Mahjong since 2021. So I just graduated from university in Singapore, and I currently just started work. So I've been working for about 3 months or so. So I've always been interested in games of probabilistic chance. So games like Mahjong, Poker, Bridge, even games like Monopoly, right? Even though a lot of people think Monopoly is a game of luck, right? It's just about rolling dice. Like there are still moves that are more optimal than others, some properties that are more higher valued, those kind of things. And I think those are interesting things to go and dissect and analyze.
That's interesting. Are you playing other games that is related to such dynamics?
I'll say that these days, not that much, because I just started work. I think I don't really have that much time compared to in the past when I was still in uni. But recently I've been playing poker more these days. I think poker is also extremely interesting. Because in poker, like, the best hand doesn't always win, Whereas, so it adds a layer of it adds the extra dimension compared to, for example, Mahjong, right? Where there's a clear-cut win condition for a hand. Your hand has to have like 4 sets and a pair, that kind. I think poker is very, very interesting when it comes to this because the best hand doesn't always win. So there's the extra element of like mind games and stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's also quite similar to Mahjong in general in terms of it's a probability game. Of course, maybe not as much of a psychological aspect. But what inspired you to start playing Riichi and how did it become a passion?
So I started playing Singapore Mahjong when I was young. When I was maybe in like secondary school, my parents taught me how to play Singapore Mahjong. Actually, to be specific, they taught me how to play the Malaysian Mahjong version. So the 3-player one with no manzi and with no fei lah, because they wanted to make it simpler. But when I started playing Singapore Mahjong, let's say with my friends, right, in a more casual setting, I didn't really like it that much because I thought it was very luck-based of a game. So this thing in Singapore Mahjong is that it's too reliant on flowers. So for example, whoever draws more flowers is currently the biggest threat on the table. You can start off the hand with the 13 tiles that everybody else starts with, but then somebody has 4 flowers and you have to start defending against him on turn 1. Right? And things like when you're playing Pinghu, if you draw a flower, then suddenly your hand value drops from 4 tai to 1 tai. I think there are just many, many luck variables when it comes to Singapore Mahjong. And not to mention all the extra payments, like kan payments, yao dao, all these. So I saw this show called Akagi. And I decided to give it a watch because I found it really interesting. So at that time when I watched it, I didn't really have a Riichi Mahjong background. But I thought the mind games aspect of it was really interesting. And it really compelled me to start trying to understand what they're talking about. Lah. For example, Riichi has a lot of different rule sets when it comes to Singapore Mahjong. And there's a lot of different intricacies, which actually got me to start learning more about the game. Then I also played the Yakuza series. And in Yakuza series, there's a Riichi Mahjong mini game that I realized, this is the same version of Mahjong as the one in Akagi. So I did a bit of searching and I realized that there were a lot of online platforms to play Riichi. And the one that I found first was actually Mahjong Soul. And from that point on, I started playing Mahjong Soul. And these days, I like playing Riichi Mahjong more than Singapore Mahjong. So I believe that Mahjong is interesting because, to a large extent, right, it's a miniature reflection of everyday life. So you can do everything right in Mahjong and still lose. You can also do everything wrong in Mahjong and still win, right? Just like in life, doesn't mean that doing the correct thing in life always gets you somewhere or always guarantees you success. And just like how you can start with a good or bad hand, you can start with a bad hand and that doesn't mean you can't win. Or you can be the other way around, right? You can start with a good hand and it doesn't mean you will win. Just like how in life you can be born into a rich or poor family, but it doesn't guarantee success or failure. And I like how it's similar to real life in the sense that in real life you're taking calculated risks all the time, right? You're always put at pivotal decision points where you have to commit to either one thing or the other, or maybe you want to take the non-committal option, like the in-between path. And it's just like how you value tile discarding in Mahjong, for example, right? Where you evaluate different risks of certain tiles or certain danger levels of tiles that you discard.
Yep.
So I think that's the really interesting part of it. Yeah.
You mentioned something quite interesting of how Mahjong reflects life. So I'm wondering how much is effort and luck in terms of success in life?
I've always believed that Riichi Mahjong is a game of 70% luck and 30% skill, right? So when it comes to real life, I would say it's probably 50% hard work and the other 50% is just, I won't call it luck, I'll call it more of the ability to seize your opportunities as they pass by. And then maybe 10% of it based on external factors that are completely out of your control. So I'll say it's about 50% hard work, 40% seizing the opportunities, and 10% just purely external factors.
To many people, I think luck in life is going to be very differently. There's a saying, luck is statistics taken personally. Perhaps to some people, opportunities may also be luck, right? You need certain
Yeah.
players to luckily discard certain tiles that you need for you to
Oh,
take
yeah.
it. Yeah. And whether you are ready to take it or not is another question. You also mentioned that you have so many stages of you getting into Riichi Mahjong and saying how you prefer it being the pattern variant than Singapore Mahjong because it's more skill based. Now that you are playing more poker, does it mean that you feel poker is more skill based than Mahjong?
I don't think I would really try to compare the two games to see which one has more skill. I don't think it's doing Poker and Riichi that much justice because ultimately they're still two different games, right? They both require skill, but they require skill in different forms, you know. So not just about the mathematical aspect. I mean, both games are ultimately games of probability and games of math, right? But I think the skill set that you need going into both of these games are very different, right? So for example, for poker, right, the top poker players, they are not usually defined to like one fixed play style, you know. Like for example, in poker you have a tight aggressive versus maybe loose aggressive play styles, right? Which are I think the two like more optimal ways to play, right? Whereas in Riichi, you still have like the Naga models of Nishiki, Kakashi, right? So like they're different play styles depending on whether you prefer a melding based or Menzen based play style. But if you ask me to compare which game takes more skill, I don't think that's an easy question to answer because I don't think there is a clear-cut answer. It requires a very, very different skill set for both of them.
Okay, now there's quite a lot that you have shared about poker. What got you to start Xanxust Mahjong and what were the ups and downs of your journey?
So in university, I was playing Mahjong a lot in my free time. There will be periods of time in uni where you have gaps of time in your timetable. Like you don't always go to lectures or do tutorials or work on stuff all the time. So in my free time, I was playing Mahjong quite a lot. And I managed to reach Master 2 or 3 within a few hundred games. So then I thought to myself, right, since I'm already playing Mahjong, right, why don't I just try streaming myself playing and narrating my thought process in real time, right? So that's the whole idea that got me to think, I should maybe try to create it, try to create content around this, like maybe even if nobody watches my videos, I still feel it's a good kind of learning diary in a sense. Like it's still a good practice because even if nobody watches my videos, I can still like, look back and maybe re-examine key decisions that caused me to win or lose the game. Like at least it lets you look back lah, right? Rather than if you just keep playing and then you don't actively analyze your plays and you don't know whether you're improving or not, right? I actually started off on Twitch, not YouTube. Like this was very long time ago. But I realized that my style is actually more suited for edited videos and guides and not so much for live streams. Because I think when I'm live streaming, I don't think I'm that good at explaining my thought process coherently. Sometimes I get distracted, sometimes I'm answering chat, sometimes I need to think of how to verbalize my thought process when I'm doing a live stream. So I think I'm more prone to making mistakes and stuff. Whereas when I'm making edited videos, then I at least know what I'm going to talk about. I type out my script and then I have the creative freedom to make the video in the format I want to. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much what got me to start Xanxust Mahjong. Even though I'm less active these days because of work, I still think it's been a good journey. And I definitely still want to continue making more when I have the free time.
That's really an important mindset, I'll say. I think it's very important for many YouTubers not care about whether people watch it or not. And I think it's a very good growth journey. And it's kind of an accountability for yourself and for your game. That's something nice that you have shared with everyone.
Yeah.
But what about the downs of your journey? Is there any downs? And how do you come up with ideas for your videos?
Okay, so let's answer the first question first, right? Downs of this journey. Right now, because I don't really have that much time to play these days, and when I play, usually I'm not at my 100% when I play because maybe I play after work. I'm not that focused. And I think over time, if you don't play for very long, your skill also kind of like drops a little bit. So recently I dropped from Saint 1 to Master 3. And now I find it's slightly harder to climb from Master 3 back to Saint. Partially because I don't have the time to put in those games in order to grind. Right. But also cause I think I need to go and re-examine my push pull. I think I've forgotten a lot of fundamentals that I started out with. So I need to go and re-examine that. It's a good thing that I actually created this channel, right? So I can go and look back at my old series and figure out what I was doing then compared to what I was doing now. So yeah, so the second part on how I came up with ideas for my videos, I think that really just depends on what I feel inspired to make at the time, right? So sometimes when I just play games, right, I'll just usually open Streamlabs OBS on the side, right? So in case I encounter a situation that's very memorable or very funny, then I can just upload that as a video, right? Like maybe I'll take a 2-minute clip of me getting a Sir Uncle Zumo at 0 points in Throne Room. That was pretty cool, right? Like how often does that happen? So my first video that blew up my channel actually, it was a 2-minute video called All Your Mahjong Pain in One Video, right? And I made that because at that specific point, right, I dealt into a triple run in Mahjong Soul. And I thought it was really funny. And I just wanted to upload it. So at first the video didn't get that many views. But the funny thing is that, you know, the YouTube algorithm is very weird sometimes. After 200 days, I think the algorithm just blessed my channel or something. That video suddenly got a huge influx of views. And to date, that video still has the most number of views on my channel. And I can't explain why. The algorithm is just like that. But my first so-called proper series was this series called Inside the Mind of a Jade Room Player. So I remember at that time I still wasn't ready to do voiceovers. But I still wanted to make content targeting intermediate players, right? Because I realized that there are a lot of channels on YouTube that some cover beginner content, right? But there aren't many channels covering intermediate and above content, right? Especially not active channels, right? So that series was basically me uploading live recordings of my games and then using YouTube subtitles to manually type out my thought process for each discard. And certain things I noticed in-game which makes me more inclined to make, certain decisions, right? So that was my first proper series. But these days I'm also willing to experiment and see what works best. Right. So there was a point in time I dabbled a bit into doing more like entertainment style videos, like the Prisma Ilya collab video, right? But those are really time consuming to make and edit. And I don't think I'm really that cut out to be a entertainment kind of streamer. I think there are other streamers that do that far better than me. So I don't think I want to compete with them in that area. So I also recently did a collab with my friend Jing Yao, the #1 chess player in Singapore, which I thought was fun. But I also don't want to alienate the portion of my audience who wants to see serious guys that I'm known for making. So I don't want to do too many of those as well, Yeah.
Even though you say that you are not cut out for entertainment content, ironically, the one that blew up the channel was the one based on entertainment content, which is all the pains in one video, which resonate
Yeah,
with
that's
many,
pretty
many
funny,
players.
right? Yeah. Life rarely occurs the way you want it to sometimes, right? Like sometimes things just happen that are completely not what you expect and you just gotta roll with it.
Yeah. When you do inside of a Saints Mind video, you have to type out your thoughts, things like that. That sounds quite tedious. For such videos, does it take very long to do? Like, what is it like for the process of making such video?
For the Inside the Mind of a Jade Room videos, right, the one you mentioned, the typing of the subtitles is actually the very, very tedious part. Because if you've randomly typed up YouTube subtitles before, right, you know how frustrating it is. Because you need to make sure that the subtitles aren't too long, that they take up too many lines on screen and then they block the mahjong tiles. You need to manually adjust the duration that each subtitle stays out for. Like you need to time it just at the point where the discard is made. So it's a little bit weird, especially if you use the YouTube subtitle interface, which is not the best. Definitely wasn't the best when I was making it. The time taken to make the video really depends on the type of video that I'm making. So usually educational content, right, where I have a fixed idea that I want to talk about, those videos take longer to make because I need to plan out the structure of the video, the content I'm going to cover in the video. And for the content in the video, I need to make sure that I am presenting content that is accurate, right? I think I made videos before in the past, right? Like that when I look back, right, like they can range from minor mistakes to like calling a A-class ramen a grade A ramen to mistakes like the Sakigiri video, right, where I think I said 356S, right, discarding 3S first is Sakigiri where you have a safe tile in your hand, but actually it's just a basic tile efficiency thing. So yeah, so I need to be aware also to make fewer of those kind of mistakes. So I'm more stringent on myself these days.
Those mistakes, as long as the content is the audience find useful, perhaps it may not be that much of a mistake. I mean, after all, it's more of a terminology difference. It may not be as bad as you might think, isn't it?
I guess that's true. But I also don't want to get too complacent also when it comes to this kind of thing. Because once the video is out, right, it stays on the internet forever. And something that people are going to watch and maybe rewatch, hopefully, and scrutinize. Like, if people are going to do that, I want my video to be as accurate as possible.
That's very harsh, and I hope your audience actually appreciate your effort behind all this video and not so much of your mistake, definitely. Based on, you have more than 2,000 subscribers, I don't think the mistakes is going to be a big issue as compared to how much value you have already delivered to your audience. I'm sure many of the
Mm.
players appreciate your videos till now,
Mm.
and you'll continue to contribute. As just now you said, the videos are there, and it also means that you'll continue to create value for new players as well.
Yeah, I actually really honored that my channel is getting the views that they are. I mean, like I said earlier, like I don't think the definition of a good channel is how many views that they get. I think it's more to do with the quality of content lah. So I'll try my best to keep uploading content of similar, if not higher quality.
That's very reassuring to hear that. But how much time do you spend on making all these videos?
Honestly, it really depends. Like there are times where I'll just upload a video on an ad hoc basis. So maybe like one evening when I'm free, then I'm just gonna upload a little bit. I make all my educational guides on PowerPoint actually. So maybe sometimes like I'll do like maybe a few slides. Then I'll do some animations for the slides, like all PowerPoint stuff. So those don't take me that long lah. I think the more time consuming process is the thinking of what ideas I want to bring forward and the research that I need to do to make sure that the content is accurate. After that is done, then I also need to think about how to present information in a bite-sized format lah. Like for example, right, there's a video that I want to upload in the future, right, called "To Assist or Not to Assist," right? Basically, it's a collection of plays where the player will try to assist somebody, and then I'll analyze their log to see whether it's a good assist or a bad assist, right? Like I have an idea in my head of what I want to cover in terms of content, right? I'm also thinking about how to structure the video, how to make it engaging, how to make it such that there are clear takeaways, like takeaway A, B, and C, or videos where like I want to make tips on how to get people out of master rank. So to go back to the original question on how long it takes to make a video, really depends on the video. If it's just subtitling videos, I think I can do that in about a day maybe. But if it's those educational content, right, and those guys, right, I think it'll take slightly longer than that, maybe 1 or 2 days. If I really just add up the total time I take among all the days when I'm editing the video on an ad hoc basis, I think it's about 1 to 2 days, including the voiceover and the writing of the script and the narration.
That's indeed quite a lot of time. Do you ever feel some kind of burnout or demoralized when working on your videos?
I think making videos ultimately is a creative process, right? Like some days you just don't feel it. For like authors, right, they call it writer's block, right? It's the idea where you sit down, you want to start writing, but suddenly you don't know what to write about. I think the video creation process also goes through the same ups and downs. I think definitely every content creator will have come across certain points in time where they are like burnout or demoralized. For me personally, I don't think I will call it like demoralizing, at least not the video creation part. I think I also sometimes doubt my own abilities also, like whether like to start my own skill when I play Riichi and then bad luck hits me, like I deal in. And then I think, wow, am I as skilled as in the past when I was in one? But I think that's quite a normal thing to think about for every player who has deranked at least one point in their life.
Yeah,
Or
I
maybe I'm
also
just
get
washed up.
also get the rank as well from Master 3. I think everyone rank here and there.
Yeah. Actually, since we're on this topic, right? Like, I want to touch a bit about the Mahjong Soul environment. I don't know why, right? Recently, when I've been playing Mahjong Soul in my like free time, right? I think it's a lot harder. I realize that the players are a lot better than they were in the past, right? Which means that climbing from master to scene is actually a lot harder, you know. So first of all, players are getting better, right? Like I don't want to say it's because of like there being more educational content and English guides, right? But I think it's also more to do with more popularity of like Riichi and Mahjong Soul in general, due to like their collabs, the Mahjong Soul anime. Like I think there's a new one that just released. I forgot the name already, but there was a new Riichi anime that just came out.
Is it Tohai?
The other, yeah, I think it's Tohai. Yeah, it's a Tohai one. I don't know the full name. The ranks are structured in Mahjong Soul, right? Is that there are a lot of people who make it to master because the Uma gain is positive until master 1, right? Like expert 3 to master 1. So because there are a lot of people who like play, right? Then if you just play long enough, you hit master 1. So a lot of people will be in the Jade room level. And then furthermore, all the Sin 1 to Sin 3 players, right? I think they also started to realize that playing in the throne room actually is not worth it because of the Uma differences, right? Like from throne room Uma to Jade room Uma, I think it's only like plus 10 if you win. But the trade-off of this plus 10, right, for first place is the fact that you play with players who are a lot stronger. Like you play Celestials, who are generally more skilled, and therefore you are more likely to lose. So if you do the EV calculation, right, the expected value calculation is actually not that worth lah. So they're also playing in Jade room. So then the question is, if everybody is playing in Jade room, right, then what separates? Like you have a room where the Master 1 and the Saint 3s are playing in the same room, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's really a lot of variance these days when it comes to playing in the Jade room for Mahjong Soul. Like I I really feel like it's like a roulette wheel, to see how skilled the players you are paired up against. Like sometimes I play games, right? I think a few days ago, I was playing against 3 Saints in one hand, and then the next game, right, I was playing against 3 Master Ones. And then there are some other games where there'll be like a Saint 3, a Saint 2, and a Master 1. And they all play super differently. Like it's really, really just very difficult to predict what kind of game you're gonna get when you click the Jade Room 4 players off button. So actually I think like this is a bit of a suggestion from me, but I think Mahjong also should have a separate room for Saint players climbing to Celestial, or at least improve the Uma and Throne room such that less Saint players will play in the Jade room and they'll play in the Throne room instead. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I do feel the same as well. But do you think Saints 1 is now like a Saint 2 a few years back? Do you feel that it's 1 rank difference or 2 rank difference, given that you said that it's harder to rank up now because everyone is getting better?
Oh, we are talking about the rank inflation. As the player base increases in size, I think there will inevitably be rank inflation. But I don't know if I can quantify it. Maybe if I were to give a rough estimate, everyone's skill level now compared to last, like a few years ago, is probably like 1 battle rank higher. So like for example, Master 2 player in the past, in terms of strength, right, will now have a Master 2 rank now, but he's probably at a skill level of a Master 3. I think there is definitely some rank inflation.
Yeah, there have been studies on Tenho as well, on using Naga score, and they saw that the 8 done in the past is now like a 7 done. I think it's not just Mahjong, so I think everywhere is the same with AI and more people researching and sharing information, everyone gets better.
And I think it's not even a Mahjong specific thing. Like any game that has any form of rank matchmaking, right, I think will face this problem.
Since we are on the topic of ranking up, with many players trying to get better, what would you advise struggling players who aspire to reach Saint like you?
I'll say that struggling players who aspire to reach Sin, right, should first of all be prepared that climbing to Sin is a grind, right? But ultimately, climbing in any online Mahjong platform is a grind, right? Because the UMA is such that if you get 4th place, it basically wipes out your large chunk of our progress. Players who aspire to reach Sin should know that it's not easy. You will definitely have bad days, but you just need to be prepared to grind out the games. That's the first thing. The second thing which I think is actually more insightful, is that the rank isn't the endpoint. Like it seems counterintuitive, right? The rank ultimately is arbitrary. You know, it's nice to reach Saint, but the goal shouldn't be like to just reach Saint and then quit Mahjong Soul forever. I think learning is a never-ending process, and the rank shouldn't be like the endpoint of your learning. So in Chinese there's this saying, right? It takes 10 years to grow a tree, but it takes 100 years to grow a person. So the idea is that education is a lifelong process, and the learning doesn't stop after a certain point. So I think players who are aspiring to reach Saint should just keep in mind that Saint is not where the learning stops.
So it's more of a mental battle.
Yeah, it's
than
more of a
anything
mental
else.
battle. Like even when I reached Saint, right, and I subsequently dropped twice, right, both times when I dropped from Saint is because I was trying to incorporate new concepts into the way I play, right? So I was experimenting more with different concepts, like when to melt more, when to like the push-pull decisions, when to push the limits of my own discard reading, for example, right? So those kind of things are ultimately what caused me to drop. But yeah, I think dropping is not a bad thing. Everybody should know when they start playing online Mahjong that at some point you're going to hit a wall, right? I think the important part is knowing how you're going to get yourself back up once you hit a wall to overcome the wall and to become a stronger player than you were before. I think that's the more important takeaway.
How do you convince yourself out of certain negative thoughts that help you continue to be mentally strong to walk this journey?
Certain things that I tell myself.
Yeah, certain mental framework, because you have explained that we need to be prepared, we need to be willing to learn, things like that. But ultimately, I feel that a lot of players is going to have certain down days, like they are feel demoralized. So during those days, is there anything that you tell yourself, or is there anything you do to make you feel better so that you can move on and improve in a healthy manner?
When it comes to that aspect, you gotta tell yourself at the end of the day, right, that losing is normal. Losing is part of the process, right? I mean, you can't play a game and expect to never lose a single game, right? You're gonna lose eventually. When you lose, right, you focus on the things you can control and not so much on the things you can't control, right? If you lose, right, then you go and look at your Naga score later, you realize, hey, actually I made no mistakes when I play, which will never happen. But If you do hit the point where you feel like you didn't make many significant mistakes, then just go next. You need to separate your performance in the previous game from your performance in the next game. Because if you don't, you're playing on tilt, right? And when you're playing on tilt, right, it's very easy for you to be in a frame of mind where you're more prone to making mistakes.
What does tilt
Tilt
mean?
tilt means, for example, if you get a fourth place, and then you just feel like, !aiya! !walao! I damn suay, I damn unlucky here. Then you have that frame of mind where like, I don't care anymore, I'm just gonna play. Like I'm the main character, like I want to push this down, then you do it.
So it's more like continuous playing aggressively, like emotions from losing.
Yeah, I'll say it's like a state of emotional frustration, And because of the emotional frustration, you become more aggressive, you make plays you won't certainly make. Like maybe you know that it's not the correct play.
So as a YouTuber with more than 2,000 subscribers, you must have an audience that you are currently actively engaged with, and a lot of them like ask you questions, things like that. What do you like most about your audience?
I think it's hard to pinpoint a specific thing, but I like the fact that my audience replies to my videos with encouraging comments because it gives me the inspiration to keep making more videos, right? I also like the fact that my audience is like, for example, when I say certain things, right, in my videos, then my audience will actually ask some questions in the comments if there are things that they are unsure of, which I think is a good thing because it means that they are at least trying to absorb the information that I'm teaching, just that maybe they have a few questions or a few things they're not sure of. But it's good because it means that they are engaging with the content that I'm putting out, right? So I like the fact that my audience, first of all, replies to my videos with encouragement and encouraging comments. And second of all, ask questions about the things that they're not sure of. Because I think that shows that they are, at the very least, they are trying to absorb the information, which means that I've done my job. That means I have succeeded to some extent in imparting the knowledge that I have onto others.
Oh, that's very heartening to know. I hope those who are watching this will give more compliments to your future videos to, to motivate you more to make more videos. If people want to know more about you and your work, where can they find them?
They can find me at my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, you can just search Xanxust Mahjong, you'll find it. Other than that, you can also search for my guides on Mahjong Soul Classroom. So if you search Mahjong Soul Classroom, right, I made some of their intermediate guides. I think the two guides I made were on Sakigiri and on basic defense and basic defense and defending using Suji. So I made guides for Yosta in the past. So I think if they want to know more about me and my work, they can mainly check me out through those two channels. Also, I have a Discord channel that I recently created because I think there were a few of my subscribers that said they were interested in such a thing. I think it's a good community for players to join if they want to, like, maybe get to know more about me. Because I don't make videos every day, but I will be slightly more active when, let's say, people ask questions in a Discord channel or ask things about like certain what will you discuss or certain strategies, right? Then I can go and look at those in my free time and just type my responses because it's only like usually like 1 or 2 lines of responses, But I think if my audience wants to interact more with me, they can also check out my Discord channel because I also get to discuss strategies and what will you discuss with other members of my community. And I think my community is quite friendly. Yeah, I think I'm very proud of my community actually. I'm quite happy actually. I never thought I would come this far.
I believe your community will be very happy to hear you say all these kind words of them. For those who do not know Xanxust Mahjong and is not in the Discord community, I'll leave the links in the video description below and feel free to join them to learn more about Xanxust and his strategies. If you have all the time, money, and resources, what Mahjong related impact will you want to make? It doesn't have to be about YouTube.
Okay, I've actually been thinking about something along these lines for a while. So if I could have a dream project, right? I want to try and implement the idea of a pairs tournament more. Whether it's through implementing it in like Mahjong Soul, for example, or maybe just a offline thing. Like I want to introduce the idea of having a pairs tournament more. In the ideal pairs tournament, right, that I'm envisioning, right, you and your teammates sit opposite each other, and then points will be awarded to the teams as follows. For example, there are 4 players, right? Someone has to get first, second, third, and fourth. But as a team, if you get first and second place, right, you get 3 points. If you get first and third, right, you get 2 points. Then if you get second and third, you get 1 point. Here's the important part. Any team that has a 4th place player in their team gets 0 points. So I think it's really interesting because it emphasizes the idea of team play a lot more, which isn't really seen in Riichi. In Riichi, maybe team play only comes into account when you're trying to sashikomi somebody or to assist somebody else, right? That's probably the extent of like team play. Or maybe in formats like M League where, right, ultimately you have a team of players, but it is still an individual game, you know. There's only one person at your team playing at one point, right? Even in like forms of like tag team mahjong, like for example, if you see like the 10 series, right? The series that actually started first before Akagi. If we see those series that when they have those like tag team tournaments, right, it's still one person playing and then one person swapping out, you know. So the idea they're trying to get at is that the PES tournament, to me, the PES format seems very underrepresented, and I would like to see more exposure into this. The thing is that I've actually organized this before at a local level, but I believe there's potential to bring this format to a larger audience worldwide. I think there's a lot of untapped potential because pair tournaments come with many interesting dynamics of team play, right? Which haven't really been explored yet in the Riichi scene. And I think it'll be really interesting if, for example, you and your partner cannot communicate with each other. Because in the way that I did it, it was an online tournament, and you and your partner were allowed to communicate to each other and say what tiles your head, right? But I think it'll be really interesting if you could do that, but you and your partner don't know what tiles you want. It opens up a whole new other element of team play and strategy. For example, if you're in first place and your partner is in fourth, how do you best assist your partner? You know, those kind of things.
So the impact you want to make is to make Mahjong more team-based, or at least more than an individual game.
To a certain extent, yes. I just want to see more variety in the way that Riichi is being played. I don't think it needs to be so crazy as to create a completely new rule set, right? I've heard somebody tell me that their house rule is that when they play Mahjong, they have no fives. And then the Shiroposhi is Delaware Akuman. Like, I've seen people who do this, but I don't want to go down that path of thinking. I still want to not deviate so far from the core of what I think makes Riichi. But I just want to build on that instead of taking away what I believe was the foundation for it.
That's a very interesting concept you have there. Do you think that if we will start with the organizers in online tournament, there will be unfairness between players who can communicate with each other as they pair out versus players who can't communicate with each other? Because just now you mentioned that it's about like the online tournament will be allowing them to communicate each other, so that that means a player can intentionally delve into ibatsu to another player, that kind of thing, to help each other out.
I think as long as the rules and regulations are made clear to everybody that you and your partner are allowed to communicate, I think there's no issue. Because logistically speaking, if you're playing Riichi online, let's say on platforms like Mahjong So, you already have access to internet, which means that it's not difficult for you and your partner to go onto like Discord call or something to share your hand, to share screen, right? And even if you don't know each other, I think there is a very easy fix for it, which is maybe to indicate that when you sign up, you're looking for somebody else to pair with you. And then once you're paired, right, then you can slowly go and reach out to your partner in your own time and then figure out how you're going to do the screen sharing thing. But I think as long as the rules are consistent and they're made known to everyone, I don't think there's an issue when it comes to this kind of unfairness.
I think it'll be interesting if Mahjong so allow us to call each other. And given the context of pair, because it'll be troublesome that we have to exchange contacts and then call from a third-party platform. If there's a pair room and we just join and we can converse there directly, then I think it might be quite interesting to play in that setting.
That might be interesting, but it will also require more resources on Yosa's part. Because that means you have to create an entirely separate interface just for the pair function. Like, I mean, these are just ideas, right? At the end of the day, like I think ultimately every idea will always be a feasible solution on how to implement each idea.
Okay, thank you very much, Xanxust. Before we end this video, you'll get the honor to pick a question for the next guest to answer. It can be any questions, and it can be not related to Riichi, but the next guest will still be a Riichi player.
If you could change one thing about the online Mahjong rule set, what would it be?
Thank you very much, Xanxust.
Thank you for having me.